Imagine you are a hiker standing on a vast mountain. Your goal is simple: find the lowest point in this entire mountain range, the deepest valley where you can rest. You are blindfolded, so you cannot see the whole landscape at once, and you do not have a map. All you can do is feel the ground beneath your feet and decide which way to step next. This is the essence of gradient descent, and the gradient is your sense of the slope underfoot, guiding you toward lower ground. Let's dive into this mountain hiking analogy to unravel the concepts of gradient and gradient descent as deeply as possible. So let's walk through what this hike actually looks like in action. To do that, we will start with a clear, simple goal. Picture yourself as the hiker and you're trying to solve, say, finding the absolute best campsite so it's perfectly sheltered from wind, close to water, and safe from rock slides. The height of the mountain at any given spot represents how bad or costly your current setup is. High up on a windy peak, your campsite is terrible, exposed, cold, and risky. Down in a cozy valley, it's perfect, sheltered, warm, and safe. Your mission is to move from wherever you are on this mountain to the lowest possible point, the ideal campsite. But here's the catch: you are blindfolded. You cannot see the whole mountain range or know where the deepest valley lies. You can only feel the ground right where you stand, how deep it is, and which direction it slopes. This feeling of the ground's tilt is the gradient. It's like your intuition telling you, hey, it's sloping downward to your right, but it is steeper to your left. Now the gradient isn't just a single arrow pointing down. The mountain is complex, with slopes twisting in every direction. If you spin in a circle, testing the ground, you might feel a dozen different slopes, some gentle, some severe. The gradient is like your brain synthesizing all those tilts into one clear signal. This way is the steepest downhill path from right here. It is the direction that promises the fastest drop in height, based on the tiny patch of ground you're standing on. But before you choose a path, pause. What if you could see all the tiny slopes around you at once? That's what the gradient reveals. From the hiker's point of view, every direction is a possibility. These small arrows show all the paths you could take, some leading gently downhill, some barely sloping at all, but one arrow stands out. It is the steepest descent, the direction where the terrain drops the fastest. This is the gradient, nature's way of pointing straight downhill. For you, it is the quickest way down the mountain. And in mathematics, it is the direction of the fastest decrease in elevation, or in machine learning, in the cost function. This arrow answers one question: which way should I go to get lower fastest? And this is not a guess, it is the best move. You took a step in the direction of the gradient, the steepest slope, and arrived at a new position, but now the landscape has changed. The slope is no longer the same. So again, you stop, look around, and ask, what's the new steepest path down from here? To calculate a new gradient, you as the hiker shift your way after arriving at a new point on the mountain, feeling the ground beneath your foot and sensing the pull of gravity in the direction where the slope drops most sharply. The terrain itself reveals the fastest way down. That direction is the gradient, and it tells you exactly where to take the next step. So, step by step, you follow these cues, zigzagging down the mountain, always using the same process, finding the gradient and taking one step at a time. Sometimes the slope is steep, and you move quickly, feeling the altitude drop fast. Other times the ground levels out, and your steps are small and cautious because the gradient is faint. And now you have arrived at this point. Recall that the gradient only knows your immediate surroundings. It's like having a guide who can see only a few feet ahead. Right now, the gradient urges you into a shallow bowl, a trap that keeps you hovering above the true valley far below. The gradient is honest but short sighted. It points you toward lower but doesn't guarantee you will reach the deepest part of the entire range. Once you reach the flat bottom of this bowl, the gradient has nothing more to say. The ground levels out and the slope becomes zero. You take off your blindfold just for a second and realize you're in a small dip. But far across the range, there is a much deeper valley, hidden behind another ridge. This is a local minimum, a low point but not the lowest. Gradient descent can sometimes get stuck here because the gradient doesn't know about the deeper valley. It only knows your current spot, and from here every direction feels like up. To escape, you might need to take a risk, maybe climb out of the dip in a random direction, hoping to find a new slope that leads to the true lowest point. What this hike teaches us is simple. The mountain is any complex problem, whether it's optimizing a recipe, running a business, or training a machine to recognize faces. The height represents how far you are from the best solution. The gradient is your intuition, data, or feedback pointing toward improvement. Gradient descent is the act of trusting that small, deliberate steps, even when the path is unclear, will get you closer to the goal. But remember, the gradient is a local guide, not a global oracle. It can nudge you forward, but it might also lead you to a dead end. The blindfold reminds us we often work with limited information, feeling our way through uncertainty. Sometimes the slope is steep and the gradient screams, "Go this way." You leap only to tumble past the sweet spot, missing the valley below. That's what happens when your steps are too big. So you learn, you pace yourself, you feel the ground beneath each step, you stay on track not by seeing the entire mountain, but by trusting the process. And one more thing, where you start matters. Beginning in the wrong spot and even perfect gradient descent won't get you to the lowest point. That's why choosing a good starting point or trying multiple ones can make all the difference.